Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. We're going to talk about the oncology research space in 2023 today. So let's get started. Our first question is for you, Dan. As Executive Director of the Sampling and Paneling Services, you're dealing with oncology projects daily. About how many projects do we have going on right now?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Number of studies we have in the oncology space is, of course, always changing as projects come and go. But it's pretty safe to assume we have somewhere between 30 and 50 oncology studies at any given time. And it may sound like a big number, and it is, but keep in mind it's spread across both qualitative and quantitative studies, and they're often quite different from each other, ranging from maybe a 45-minute TDI project to a 15-minute online survey to even a 60 to 90-minute patient chart study. The topics, of course, run the gamut of everything oncology related. But overall, having 30 to 50 oncology studies in-house at any given point is quite high when considering the size of the oncology universe compared to other specialty areas.
Yeah. And with all those projects happening at once, we're noticing an industry-wide challenge to attract oncologists. In your experience and your opinion, what do you think? Why do you think it's such a challenge to attract them?
Well, there is certainly no shortage of challenges. I'll say that one of those challenges simply comes down to time and energy, specifically the time and energy of potential panelists. As we can all imagine, treating oncology patients can already be a very stressful, intense job. But on top of that, many oncologists are reporting burnout. They're working longer hours, they have increased patient volumes. According to many reports, there also seems to be an increased burden of clerical work due to electronic health records, which unfortunately is spilling into their personal time. Many oncologists are reporting up to 2 hours of work at home every day just to complete the EHR tasks from their workday.
Wow.
So asking these specialists, which is already a very limited universe size, to join a market research panel and participate in surveys in their own personal time often goes to the bottom of their list, even if it is something that ultimately might interest them and they might benefit from.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's definitely understandable. Thank you. Jason, as Senior Vice President of Reckner Healthcare, you've dealt with these challenges as well. Why do you think it's such a challenge to attract oncologists to market research?
Uh, Great, thanks. I think some of the biggest issues that I see is simply awareness. Many oncologists aren't even aware that paid market research is real. We were at ASCO a few years ago. Many of the oncologists that we met and walking around and having a booth really had no idea that primary market research, paid physician research was a real thing that they could take part in. I think add on to that, the amount of spam and fraud that's just prevalent right now in everyday life. Being contacted to join a panel that pays you to participate in surveys may just seem too good to be true. I think in addition, once we get over those hurdles, there are concerns that oncologists and other physicians have just in terms of HIPAA compliance, divulging confidential practice information, and those two things make them wary to participate in any given study depending upon the topic and what they're doing. But I agree with Dan. I think, after awareness, after we can get over those hurdles, the overarching issue is time. They have very little time in their professional and personal lives. Everything's taking longer. It's more complicated. And it's just allowing for us to have less of their active time to participate in survey research. So although we're doing our best to overcome all of those challenges and hurdles, it still comes down to vying for their time and trying to make it important and make Reckner the space that they want to play in.
Thanks, Jason. Those are all good points too. So we know it's a challenge to attract oncologists to participate in research. Next, I'd like to hear from Ken, our Vice President of Quantitative Services. Ken, What about oncology has changed so significantly over the last decade that makes this difficult?
It's a good question, Emily. Thinking back about 10 years ago, just on our own, we were able to complete 200 oncologists for a single online quantitative study. That's no partners, all from our proprietary panel. The landscape has just been so drastically changed. Thinking back about 10 years ago, the oncologist practices started restricting sales reps just because of the volume of what they were saying. That's recently been waning. Thinking about nowadays and where we are in 2023, oncologists they're opening up the sales reps because they need their in-depth knowledge given the pipeline of oncology products that have come to market over the past 10 years. One of the other bigger pressures that we felt about 10 years ago was there was an influx of data collection agencies that started. When they came in, it was all about trying to drive pricing down in order to win the work. And in doing that, they were cutting the incentive to the oncologists, which would leave a bad taste in the oncologist's mouth because they weren't being paid the appropriate amount that they thought they should be paid. Oncologists feel they should be making about $4 per survey minute for an online quantitative study. And some of these market or data collection agencies were offering much less than that. So once they have a bad taste in their mouth from one other agency, they might not be apt to participate in any other agency moving forward.
Makes sense. Thanks, Ken.
Of course.
So over the last decade, it seems like a lot has changed. Kevin, as Vice President of Sampling and Panel Services, you're in charge of overseeing our entire panel. How are we keeping the oncologists engaged specifically?
Yeah, hi, Emily. Thank you. As Dan mentioned, it's no surprise. We're live in field with many oncology projects, both on our qualitative and quantitative sides. We take our engagement to heart. We don't send invites on back-to-back days, or the same day for that matter, for the same project. And we do have a bird's eye view of the multiple oncology projects. So that does afford us the ability to throttle the email outgo so that we don't flood their inboxes. We've also spent much time and effort on panel maintenance, making sure that our email addresses are clean and deliverable, which is very important. We take pride in our 97 plus sender score, that's out of 100, and it shows in our response rates.
That's great, Kevin. It sounds like our teams are working hard and being intentional about how we're reaching out to panelists. Lexi, as Vice President of Qualitative Services, you're talking to oncologists every day. How is your team keeping oncologists engaged?
Well, right, you said it. We are literally talking to oncologists every day, all day, whether we're recruiting them for a new study or confirming them for an existing one. And I think they really appreciate this. We can talk them through the screening process and find a convenient time to schedule and just help them understand what is expected for a given study. These days, studies have a lot going on. Consent forms to sign in advance, pre-tasks to complete, Zoom links to have handy, whatever else. And I definitely think just having a live person to speak with helps them keep track of everything. And as a result, I'd like to believe they feel more connected to the process and more apt to do our studies.
Thanks, Lexi. It sounds like your team is working really hard as well. So with all of the projects we have happening at one time, all of the challenges we're facing with participation, we still need oncologists to pass screeners when participating in research. Ken, what are some strategies we're using to make sure an onc doesn't terminate before the end of a screener?
That's a very, very good question. You should apply the basic tenets of the quantitative market research. Keep the screen to 10 to 12 questions. You don't want it to be longer than 2 to 3 minutes, preferably in the closer to 2 minutes than 3 minutes, because as we've all been discussing, oncologist time is very valuable and they don't have much of it. You want to ensure the more stringent criteria is towards the front of the screener. You don't want them to have to go all the way to the end to see a question that they know they're going to terminate at just to give them a very bad experience and leave a bad taste in their You don't want to ask some extraneous questions like trying to whittle down the number of patients per month to see what medications they might be using for certain types of cancer types. If you are recruiting from a client list, speak with your clients. Know how this list was built. Why are we using this list? Are the respondents going to pass the screener based on the knowledge of how the list was built? Once a respondent, if a respondent terms, you want to stop them at that immediate question. You don't want to ask them any additional questions just because, again, these are oncologists. They're smart individuals. They'll figure out you're asking questions where they know they've terminated at a previous question.
Right.
Now, the whole goal here is to keep the oncologist happy and participating in market research surveys. So you want to offer these best practices to keep them happy. One of the things that we always strive to do, and it's kind of a company-wide policy at Reckner, is we try to get them, anyone who completes any of our surveys, we try to get them paid as quickly as possible. Giving them that positive experience, knowing they're going to get paid within a few weeks of completing their survey is great for them, and it's a good experience for them to come back and keep participating in future research studies.
Thanks, Ken. That sounds like a solid approach to making sure oncologists get a good shot at passing a screener and have a good experience with us. As we wrap up, I think it's really important that we discuss what Reckner offers in this space that's different from other market research companies. Evan, can you give us some insight on what we're doing differently?
Sure, Emily. To me, it's simple. The Reckner offers integrity and transparency to all of our panelists. What I mean is integrity. I'll echo Ken. Incentives, for instance. We surveyed our oncology panel. We asked what they wanted. The consensus was $4 a minute for an ad hoc survey, non-chart exercise. 4 charts, which we do see a lot of chart audits daily. We offer an increased incentive, which others in the space may not. That accounts for the extra time that it takes the oncologist to download a chart, to have that chart handy so that they're not trying to complete a survey top of mind. As we all know, some of these charts could be 5 minutes. Some of these charts could be 20 minutes. So our oncologists appreciate the extra incentive, which allows them to pull down the charts and feel that their time is appreciated. And in return, they give us sincere responses. Transparency, similar to our incentive approach. We are completely transparent with our invitations. We outline everything, the estimated time. If there are charts included, we outline that time per individual chart in addition to the survey length so that they can have some sense of time of how long that exercise will take. We do that because we feel and we see directly that it helps with survey completion. It reduces the number of dropouts or breakoffs. And at the end of the day, it helps us deliver great quality data to our clients.
Thanks, Kevin. It sounds like we're doing everything we can to work with the oncologists and to make sure that they're participating and being paid fairly. This has been awesome. Thank you guys so much. Your experience in this industry has been priceless, and I've learned a lot, and I'm hoping other people have also learned a lot. So thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Emily.
Emily.
Great.
Thanks, Emily.
Bye-bye.